Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crystal, just in case you're new here. But today I am going to be telling you guys all of the books that I read in the month of July. So this month I've read a decent amount of books. I've also started and not finished a lot of books as well. Let's just get into the books that I finished. So the first book that I finished is The Witch's House, and this is The Diary of Ellen, Volume 1. This is by Fumi, and the artist is Yuna Kagasaki. I'm so bad at pronouncing names. But this book really intrigues me, and I'm very much looking forward to finishing the series. It starts off with Ellen, who has this crazy skin disease, and it's flesh eating, and it's basically her body is eating itself, and she's just deteriorating away. For the longest time, her mother took care of her, and her mother kind of snapped and had a breaking point and was just over it, and she decides to just pick up and leave Ellen. And now Ellen is abandoned with her father, and her father wants nothing to do with her, wants to not even help her change her bandages and keep her clean. He's disgusted by her. So Ellen feels completely hopeless in this moment. Her mother decides to come back and collect some of her belongings, but Ellen thought her mother was just coming back to come back and be with her and take care of her, which is so heartbreaking. And her mother was like, no, I'm not staying. I'm making a life for myself somewhere else. And Ellen kind of just loses it. She loses it, and she ends up murdering both of her parents. And prior to her murdering her parents, in the beginning of this book, she finds a black cat, and he's dead, and she just feels sorry for it, and she thinks she should give it the proper burial. So she decides to take the cat and bury him back into the earth where he belongs. Little does she know that she had awakened a demon, and by her murdering her parents, she fed that demon souls. And that's basically how the story begins. This demon saves Ellen from her being blamed for murder and takes her away to the witch's house, and that is where he takes care of her, also nurses her back to health. Her disease is gone. She starts to feel normal somewhat, except for the fact that now she is a witch, and she now has to continue to feed this cat souls. Highly recommend this series if you have not heard of it already. It is like a horror type of manga, so there are some bloody pictures in here, some graphic pictures in here. So if you are not into that, if it's too much for you, I don't suggest it. But as someone who loves horror, I'm glad I found this series myself. I never heard of it until I saw it on the shelves in Barnes & Noble, and I was like, witches, sounds fun. So definitely excited for the rest of the series. There's a lot of books in the series, so I might have to see if my library has them, because I'm not going to purchase every single one. And of course, I gave this series a 5 out of 5 stars. The book that I finished was All the Bad Apples by Family Doyle, and this is my favorite read this month. I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. This was such a necessary read for women who don't feel seen, for LGBTQ people that don't feel seen. This book is amazing, and please pick it up. I absolutely loved it. It also has a lot of Irish folklore in here. It does take place in Ireland, and if you saw my reading vlog about this book, you'll know a lot more. But I did have a great time reading this book, and I just loved every minute of this book. So I cannot wait for this to come out in August. I think it's coming out August 12th, not sure. But if you haven't added it to your TBRs just yet, and you're looking for a new witchy atmospheric read with diversity and LGBTQ elements to it, I highly, highly suggest this feminist tale about a legacy of witches. Next I have here Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I ended up DNFing this book because I just felt uncomfortable reading it. It's just not my type of book. I know everyone loved this book, but I just didn't. I didn't love it. I love the cover. The cover is beautiful, and I'm not going to get rid of it because it looks nice on my shelves, but you know, maybe I'll revisit it one day. But I felt like this was just a cringe-worthy romance to me, and I couldn't get through it. It just was pointless for me to even read it. Next, I have here Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This is a book of the month pick, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This book was so interesting, so twisty-turvy, and at first, I didn't think I was gonna like this book. At first, the first 50% of this book, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna finish it. I'm not really loving it. Nothing's really happening. But boy, all of that build-up and all of that info dumping information is so worth it when you get to the end. I just absolutely love Riley Sager's work, and I can't wait to see more from him. I know that this book got optioned for a TV series, so that's really exciting. If you haven't picked this up yet, and if you love twisty, mind-bendy, like TV shows, things that mess with you psychologically, and all of that like almost Black Mirror type stuff, definitely check out Lock Out Every Door. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Next up I have here Buffy the Vampire Slayer High School is Hell Volume 1. I enjoyed it. It was good. I mean, there's a lot of things that are changed from the series to this. This is almost a retelling with the same characters, same faces, all of that. But just the storylines changed quite much. I had fun. I had fun reading this. I enjoy being back in the Buffyverse. I enjoy something new from the Buffyverse. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Not exactly what I expected, but I had a really good time reading it, and I read this for the reading rush. So this was the first book that I finished for the reading rush. So I actually really just I'm satisfied. I can't wait for the second volume to see where it's going to go. The next I have here, The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. I finished this glorious, beautiful, adorable book during the reading rush as well, and I just am obsessed with these tea dragons. I want a plushie. I want all of them on my bed so I can cuddle with them, and I just love them. They're just so cute, and this story, oh, this story is so cute. And Minette, is she not the cutest little thing? With her little memory issues. I love her. I love all these characters in this book, and I cannot wait for the second book to come out. And I think it's coming out soon. I highly suggest this as a palate cleanser type of book, because that's what I used it for, and I just felt so refreshed after reading it, and I felt so ready to read something else afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you need that palate cleanser in between reading and all of that, and this has beautiful pictures in it, and it's very relaxing to read. I highly suggest making yourself a cup of tea and just reading this book. It's just so cute. It's so worth it. Oh, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Next I have here Death Note Volume 1, and I really enjoyed the series. I cannot wait to pick up Volume 2, although I might not get to it in August, but this series is so interesting. It's so original. It's once you start, you can't stop reading it. And there's a lot of pages in the first volume. All these books are pretty big. There's so much happening. It's just so good. And I'm finding that reading mangas are making me a lot more excited to pick up regular novels too. It's nice to have that like mix of mangas and novels. It definitely keeps you from getting slumpy. I personally feel that way. So I like to alternate from a novel to a manga, and this one really, it's so good. And if you don't know what this is about this high school boy who feels like he just doesn't really fit in. He's always bullied, and there is this like god who's bored basically, so he is really scary, and he's really terrifying looking. Let me see if I can get a scary picture of him. Yeah, there he is. Okay, so he's bored hanging out where he hangs out, wherever he is, up in the sky somewhere, and he just drops this notebook. Now, this notebook that he has, if you write people's names in it and how they're gonna die, they die. So it's basically playing God. This notebook ends up in Light's hands, and he decides to do what he thinks is the right thing with this book, is watch the news, find out criminals that are stealing from people, that are killing people, and kill them off, and then the world will be a safer place, right? Well, that's what Light thinks, but is he doing the right thing? And this book almost makes you think, what would you do if you had your hands on something so permanent and so godlike? Like, what would you do if you had Death Note? I really, really enjoyed this. There's a lot of stuff that happens in here. It's pretty good. I highly, highly suggest it. And I highly suggest the black edition. Something about holding this and the pictures and the black pages just really set the tone for me. So highly suggest it. And also I highly suggest watching the Netflix special of it as well. 5 out of 5 stars. Then next I have here The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Haro, and I did not love this book at all. I gave it a 3 because the writing was beautiful and flowery, and I felt like the author did a great job, but the plot was just lacking substance for me. Really honestly would have given it a 2-star if it wasn't for the author having really beautiful writing and also the character growth from January, from the beginning of the book to the end. I thought her growth was really great, but overall it was a historical fiction. Yes, portals are mentioned, but it's not a portal fantasy in my eyes, personally, because I've read portal fantasies in the past and enjoyed them, but I feel like you can't compare the Wayward Children series to this book. There are some similarities, but I wouldn't say it's as whimsical and interesting as that is. Personally, I felt like that was just more of a marketing attempt just to get the hype up on this book. But that's just my personal opinion. So if anyone else has read this book, please let me know if you were able to get into this, because it took me about 160 pages to actually get focused in on the story, and then more towards the end I was ready to just give up, and I was just like, you know what, I'm done. But I will say there are some trigger warnings for this book. There is self-harm in this book. There is hopelessness in this book, so if that's something that triggers you very easily, definitely beware before you go into this book. There is a very graphic part in here that is very descriptive, and it could trigger some people. So definitely reader beware for that as well. But overall, the story was okay, and it was more of a family history, self-discovery type book than a portal fantasy. And there was a book inside of a book. So this character, main character January, was traveling to these worlds because she was reading them. She wasn't actually physically traveling to these worlds for a good part of the book. That's where I kind of just got lost and I was just bored. So definitely recommend it if you are looking for like a historical fiction / coming of age type story with like mystical elements to it. But I could have done without this book, honestly. And I don't know if it's because I just feel let down because the hype was so strong and I was led to believe that it was going to be like something more interesting, but it's not. So 3 out of 5 stars, and that's like being nice. Next book that I read was an ARC that I got from NetGalley, and that is called The Book Charmer by Karen Hawkins. This book comes out July 30th, so it's probably already out. So if you are interested in it, I thought it was a really, really cute small town book. It has a lot of elements to it. It deals with grief. It deals with loss of childhood. It deals with self-discovery. It deals with friendships. It deals with love. It just has so much stuff in there. And it also has magical realism. Now, one of the main characters, she is able to speak to books, and books speak to her. And they basically say, you know, I'll be perfect for this one, or whatever. So it's a really, really cute book. It takes place in North Carolina. It starts off with this girl named Sarah Dove, and she is the character who could speak to books, and they speak to her. And it starts off with her life in this sleepy town in North Carolina. She is a librarian, and her job is basically to place these books into the right hands of the right people, and they serve a purpose for these people. They change their lives, they, you know, help them. And that's how we all feel about books too, is when we read a book, it could change our lives and change our outlook on things and just change our mood. And that's what her job is, basically, is to just help people find the right books for them. And these books speak to them. I'm really bad at putting things into like a synopsis, like my own synopsis, because I feel like I leave out elements, or sometimes I spoil things by accident. So I'm just going to read you the synopsis of this book. New York Times bestselling author Karen Hawkins crafts an unforgettable story about a sleepy southern town, two fiercely independent women, and a truly magical friendship. Sarah Dove is no ordinary bookworm. To her, books have always been more than just objects. They live, they breathe, and sometimes they even speak. When Sarah grows up to become the librarian in her quaint southern town of Dove Pond, her gift helps place every book in the hands of the perfect reader. Recently, however, the books have been whispering about something out of the ordinary, the arrival of a displaced city girl named Grace Wheeler. If the books are right, Grace could be the savior that Dove Pond desperately needs. The problem is, Grace wants little to do with the town or its quirky residents, Sarah chief among them. It takes a bit of urging and the help of an especially wise book, but Grace ultimately embraces the challenge to rescue her charmed new community. In her quest, she discovers the tantalizing promise of new love, the deep strength that comes from having a true friend, and the power of finding just the right book, a mesmerizing fusion of the mystical and the everyday. When I read that synopsis, I was like, yes, please, I need that book, and I got it, and I am so happy that I got it. I really love it, and I cannot wait to revisit it. I will most likely pick up the physical copy because the cover is just so beautiful, and any covers that have, like, books that have books on them, I just like to have in my possession. I think it's so cool. So definitely check that out if you are looking for a light, feel-good type of read with magical realism. I just love books like that, especially when it includes a sleepy town. So highly recommend. I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I also finished The Toll by Sherry Priest, and I absolutely love this book. This was like an interesting, different horror book for the summer. It's about a swamp and swamp people and something going on in this mystical town, that people are disappearing and not coming back, and people just keep covering things up and not wanting to discover what is happening to these people because they're terrified of what lurks beneath the surface. Highly suggest this book if you're looking for a fun horror book to read for the rest of the summer. It's really quick read, and it's thrilling, it's fun, and it's not so gory, so that's exciting. So if you are someone who doesn't typically read horror books, I highly suggest this, just for like a little bit of a creep factor. It's not super bloody and gross, so you're not gonna feel like about anything. I absolutely love this, so I just want to say thank you to her for sending me a copy of this book. I think I'm going to read more from Sherry Priest because I really enjoyed her writing as well, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars because I was highly entertained by this book. And if you saw my reading vlog for this, you'll know a lot more detail if you want to check out a little bit more about what The Toll is about. So that's it. That is everything that I read this month, which is a whole lot. Let me know what you guys read this month, if you read any of the books that I read also this month, how you did on the reading rush, if you survived, because I did, I survived. I'm just tired, I'm over it. No more weekly readathons for a while. I'm done. And so yeah, that is it. That is all I have for you guys today. And if you like this video, if you want to see more from me, please like and subscribe down below.